There are people who feel that something watches them from within themselves. A silent presence, familiar, that seems to whisper answers in moments when the mind collapses and the heart seeks direction. Many call it intuition, others call it an inner voice, but few understand that perhaps it is something much deeper, another version of oneself, living in a plane where time runs billions of times faster, trying to communicate across the veils of reality. Itzhak Bentov, one of the great explorers of consciousness, said that the human being is not an isolated unit, but a field of vibration that extends through parallel dimensions. And in that vastness, each of us possesses a double, an energetic reflection that lives at another level of time, experiencing the consequences of our choices and trying, in some way, to guide us back to the path that truly matters. This idea challenges everything we learned about reality, but there is something in it that resonates powerfully with those who feel that the material world is only part of the story. Because, in the end, we have all had that dream that seemed more real than life itself. That impossible coincidence. That premonition that saves something or someone. They are echoes of the double, signals that there is a greater intelligence acting behind what we call chance. Today's video is not merely a reflection, it is an invitation. A dive into knowledge that few have the courage to look directly at. You will understand how this other you operates outside of time, how it sends messages through dreams, intuitions, and synchronicities, and, above all, how to strengthen this connection. Because, when contact becomes conscious, life changes frequency. Prepare yourself. What you are about to hear may forever transform the way you understand time, consciousness, and reality itself. When Itzhak Bentov spoke about the universe and consciousness, he did not treat life as a random sequence of events, but as a multidimensional experience, where each thought, each emotion, and each choice unfolds into distinct lines of reality. In this perspective, the double emerges not as a symbol, but as a living entity, an extension of consciousness itself that vibrates at another level of time. This double, according to Bentov, is like a parallel version of each human being, one that lives in a dimension where events are processed billions of times faster than in physical reality. While the rational mind tries to control the pace of life, the double observes in silence, experiencing the consequences of each decision before they even materialize here. It is not a copy, nor a mirror, but an energetic counterpart that accompanies us on all planes. It is the one who, many times, tries to alert us about something, to send us a subtle signal, whether through a dream, a sudden sensation, or that coincidence that seems too unlikely to be mere chance. When someone feels a strong intuition, an inexplicable certainty that something is about to happen, it is the double who is trying to speak. Bentov described this phenomenon as an attempt at communication between the two frequencies of the same being. The physical self and the energetic self coexist in a constant dance, exchanging information through subtle channels that few perceive. The problem is that the body and mind, so trapped in linear time, rarely manage to decipher the language of the double, and so many messages are lost in the noise of routine and daily worries. But there are moments when this communication becomes clearer. Sometimes, during deep sleep, when the barriers of rational consciousness dissolve, the double finds space to transmit data, experiences, warnings, or even fragments of alternative realities. It is in this state that it shows us the consequences of choices we have not yet made, paths we could follow, and realities that coexist with us. There are those who wake from a vivid dream and feel that it was not merely a mental projection, but a glimpse of another line of existence. Bentov believed that, in these moments, the person was, in fact, accessing the experiences of their double, living for instance in another temporal dimension. This vision, which challenges common logic, suggests that consciousness is much broader than the body can hold, and that what we call life is only one of the possible frequencies of manifestation. What if this other you were constantly trying to adjust your path, prevent mistakes, and guide decisions that could alter your entire soul trajectory? If the double perceives the consequences before they happen here, then perhaps the intuitions that arise from nowhere are not mere coincidence, but echoes of a faster reality trying to guide us. Upon understanding this principle, a new perception of oneself begins to emerge. The idea of the divided self transforms into a bridge between worlds, the physical and the subtle, the visible and the invisible. And the more the individual opens themselves to this silent dialogue, the more they perceive that time and reality perhaps do not function the way they have always believed. Upon understanding the nature of the double, it becomes inevitable to reflect on the very concept of time. Bentov said that time is not a straight line that advances from past to future, but a multidimensional structure, where everything happens simultaneously. What we call yesterday, today, and tomorrow are merely limited ways of perceiving an ocean of events coexisting in the same instant. It is as if we were trapped in a single frame of an infinite film, believing that frame is the entire story. Within this vision, the universe does not progress, it pulses. Each beat is an eternal now, and the linear time that the human mind perceives is merely a tool of navigation. The double, by living in a higher frequency dimension, is not subject to this illusion of sequence. It perceives the past, present, and future as a single vibratory field, where possibilities interweave. And it is precisely in this interweaving that it acts, sending fragments of information that, for us, manifest as intuitions, premonitions, and meaningful coincidences. When someone feels that they already knew what was going to happen, it is not a supernatural gift, but a brief contact with the plane of the double, where the future is already drawn in potential. The body reacts to this contact with physical sensations, goosebumps, chills, a knot in the stomach, because, on subtle levels, it recognizes the overlapping of different times. Bentov used to explain that the human brain functions as a receiver, and time is merely the way that receiver decodes information from consciousness. However, the double perceives the whole, not the fragment. This understanding completely changes how one interprets destiny. If time is a living fabric and not a linear sequence, then the future is not fixed, but malleable. The double, living billions of times faster, experiences the variations of our choices and tries to guide us toward the one that produces greater harmony. It observes the consequences before they become facts in our dimension and, based on this, sends small corrections, impulses, signals, impressions, that reach us when we are in more receptive states. During a moment of silence, a pause in the everyday, a flash of understanding can cross the veil of time and bring an answer that seemed impossible. In that instant, the double is acting, connecting physical consciousness with the point of the eternal now, where all versions of existence coexist. And it is in this space, outside the linear flow, that true communication between worlds occurs. Bentov said that life is like a wave vibrating inside another, larger wave, and time is merely the perceptible rhythm of this vibration. When one perceives that each decision is like a chord played in this cosmic symphony, the sense of past and future dissolves, and only the melody of the present moment remains, sustained by the double operating behind the scenes of being. And it is precisely in this understanding that a new question begins to emerge. If everything is part of the same field of consciousness, is the reality in which we live as solid as we think? Or is it merely a temporary interface of a much deeper dimension? At some point on the path of consciousness, the suspicion arises that the physical world is only one of many layers of existence. This idea is not new, but gained strength with researchers like Tom Campbell, who describes the universe as a great simulation, a learning field created for the refinement of the soul. In this perspective, the body would be merely the suit worn to navigate within the physical environment, while the true identity dwells outside it, in the domain of pure consciousness. Itzhak Bentov saw this same principle from another angle. For him, the universe behaves as a vibrational structure where each being is a spark of cosmic intelligence experiencing different frequencies of reality. Thus, what we call life would be a system of evolutionary training, designed to expand the being's perception of itself. Within this system, the double is the link between the player and the character, the bridge between what observes and what experiences. Upon understanding that consciousness is the core of the game, not the body, a shift in perspective occurs. Suffering, fear, and crises cease to be punishments and become programmed challenges designed to generate growth. Everything that repeats in life, people, situations, patterns, functions as lessons from the same learning level, asking for a new response from consciousness. The double, faster and more lucid, observes these repetitions and tries to indicate the way out, showing the path that leads to expansion. Each thought you emit, each emotion you project, feeds this simulation system, shaping the scenery around you. Reality responds not to surface desires, but to the internal vibration of the player. This is why people in tune with their own essence seem synchronized with life. They do not force the game, they flow with it. The double acts as an internal programmer, adjusting the course so that the player does not get lost in the maze of illusions. What if everything you see is merely an interface? If the physical laws are the codes of a system created to test consciousness at denser levels of energy? This hypothesis does not diminish the importance of life. On the contrary, it reveals how precious it is. It means that each gesture, each choice, each thought has real weight in the development of the soul. The simulation exists so that the being can learn what would not be possible on the plane where time does not exist. Upon perceiving oneself as a player and not merely as a character, the individual begins to look at the world with different eyes. They begin to notice the signs, the coincidences, the subtle repetitions. Everything that once seemed like chance now gains meaning. Communication with the double intensifies, and intuition becomes the primary tool for navigating between realities. At this point, the game changes levels, and what was once merely reaction transforms into conscious participation. And it is precisely there that a new stage of the journey begins. Understanding how this double tries to communicate and how it sends messages across the veil between dimensions. Communication with the double happens at a level that transcends word. It is not something that can be captured by reason, but by an inner listening that only opens when the noise of the mind falls silent. The double manifests itself through subtle frequencies, and to perceive them, one must slow down. The more the body and mind vibrate in tension, the more distant this attunement becomes. This is why moments of rest, contemplation, or deep sleep are the most direct bridges to this contact. During sleep, when the defenses of rational consciousness dissolve, the field is free for the transmission of information. The double takes advantage of this space to send fragments of experiences lived in other timelines, converting them into symbolic dreams. Many of them seem confused at first glance, but they carry precise guidance, answers to questions that have not even been formulated yet. The unconscious acts as a translator, converting vibrations and perceptions into images comprehensible by the human mind. However, communication does not occur only while sleeping. The double also manifests itself in moments of awakened stillness, that sudden sensation of clarity, an intuition that arises without apparent reason, or even physical discomfort that indicates that something is not in harmony. These signals are not mere coincidences, but transmissions from a faster dimension, where the consequences have already been observed before they become reality here. There are people who report feeling a tightness in their chest before making a wrong decision, or a slight euphoria before choosing the right path. This is not superstition, it is energetic perception. The body is the sensory instrument through which the double makes itself heard. Intuition is the shared language between the two worlds, a silent language, but full of wisdom. And the more someone learns to trust this inner voice, the clearer the communication becomes. At certain moments, the double also uses the surrounding environment as a means of transmission. Synchronicities, improbable encounters, phrases that emerge at the exact moment, all of this are forms of vibrational alignment. It is as if the universe conspired to draw the attention of physical consciousness and remind it of a path being drawn in parallel. These events are orchestrated by an intelligence that observes outside linear time, adjusting every detail so that the player does not get lost within the game. For many, this type of experience is frightening at first, because it challenges common sense about reality. But, upon recognizing that consciousness is greater than the body and time, fear transforms into curiosity, and then into reverence. Communication with the double ceases to be an anomaly and becomes a natural part of existence. What once seemed like chance begins to reveal a pattern, and the being starts to understand that they are being guided by something that knows them better than they know themselves. From that point on, every dream, every sensation, and every coincidence gains a new meaning, that of coded messages coming from a dimension where the future has already been seen and the present is merely the reverberation of a choice already fulfilled. And it is at this point that it becomes possible to recognize the clearest signs of this presence, the unmistakable marks that the double is trying to establish contact. As sensitivity refines, unmistakable signs begin to emerge that the double is present. These signals do not appear spectacularly, but in subtle manifestations, disguised as everyday experiences. They present themselves with the precision of one trying to draw attention without disrupting the natural order of the world. Yet, when perceived, they completely change the way one sees reality. The first type of contact usually occurs through vivid dreams. These are not ordinary dreams, but intense experiences that carry real emotions, as if the person had lived another life during sleep. They are memories from a parallel timeline, where the double experiences the possibilities of choices that have not yet materialized here. Often, these dreams leave a sensation of déjà vu, a strange familiarity with situations yet to happen. Another frequent signal is sudden intuition, that silent voice that arises from nowhere, without logical explanation. It does not argue, merely points. Generally, it is the double trying to transmit the most harmonious direction, based on consequences already observed in another dimension. Those who learn to hear this voice begin to perceive that the answers they have long sought do not come from outside, but from a field of wisdom that dwells within their own being. There are also synchronicities, coincidences so precise they seem choreographed by an invisible intelligence, improbable encounters, numbers that repeat, phrases or symbols that appear at the exact moment a doubt arises, all are reflections of alignment between the two realities. The double uses the very fabric of life as a means of communication, molding events to signal that the path is being followed correctly. At other times, the sensation is of having lived that before. Déjà vu, from this perspective, is an echo of memories from the double, impressions of events already experienced in another timeline. It acts as a reminder that time is not sequential and that versions of the self coexist side by side, sharing perceptions. It is also common to awake with clear solutions to problems that seemed unsolvable the night before. This happens because the double works during sleep, accessing alternative realities and returning with ready-made answers. The physical brain, upon waking, merely decodes the content of this communication and interprets it as an insight. Some people report sudden changes in direction, a sudden decision, an irresistible impulse to follow another path. Although it may seem like an instinctive act, many of these changes are urgent instructions from the double, which perceives the unfolding of possibilities and tries to reposition the trajectory before an error solidifies. And there is still the sensation of unexplainable familiarity with people or places. It is as if the heart recognizes what the mind does not know. That profound feeling of already knowing someone is the recognition between doubles that coexist in different dimensions. Meetings that seem fated from the beginning are not the product of chance. They are reunions of consciousnesses that have already crossed in parallel realities and now touch again, even if briefly. All these signals become clearer as the individual becomes more attentive. The double never forces contact, it merely offers clues. It is up to physical consciousness to develop the listening and trust to perceive these subtle messages. It is in this state of presence, between silence and attention, that dialogue between worlds intensifies. And from this understanding emerges the essential question: if the double constantly tries to communicate, how can this bond be strengthened so that the exchange becomes conscious and constant? Contact with the double does not depend on special gifts, but on sensitivity, consistency, and surrender. This connection is natural, yet dormant in almost everyone. The modern mind, so full of noise and distractions, has become the main obstacle to this dialogue. However, when space is created for silence and attention, the channel between the two realities begins to open. It is at this point that communication ceases to be chance and becomes a conscious practice. One of the most effective methods is the practice of gratitude before sleep. At the end of the day, in the instant when the body prepares to rest, the energy field becomes more receptive. Thanking the double, acknowledging its presence, and asking for specific guidance is like tuning the frequency of a spiritual antenna. It is not a mechanical ritual, but a gesture of vibrational alignment. This simple act creates a bridge between the two consciousnesses, the one that lives physical time and the one that moves beyond it. During sleep, this communication intensifies. The double works behind the scenes of the mind, adjusting perceptions, reorganizing information, and often offering answers through dreams. This is why keeping a notebook by the bed and recording everything remembered upon waking is fundamental. Even if the images seem disconnected, the simple act of writing opens a direct channel of attention. The unconscious understands that the content is valued, and in response, the double begins to express itself with greater clarity. The practice of observation also strengthens this connection. Every synchronicity, every internal sensation, every repetition of symbols are small reminders that the dialogue is active. Trusting intuition is essential. Doubt interrupts the flow, but trust expands it. Intuition is the language of the double translated into emotional form. The more one trusts, the more precise it becomes. Over time, this sensitivity transforms into practical wisdom, decisions more aligned, meaningful encounters, and a constant feeling of being in the right place at the right time. Another way to deepen contact is to cultivate states of deep relaxation, whether through meditation, conscious breathing, or moments of absolute silence. When the internal rhythm slows down, consciousness begins to vibrate at a frequency close to that of the double. In this subtle zone, it is possible to perceive immediate answers, insights, and even physical sensations that confirm alignment. The body becomes the instrument that translates the presence of this other version of oneself. As days pass, this communication ceases to be sporadic and transforms into partnership. The double begins to guide not only important decisions but also small daily movements, from the moment to act to the instant to wait. And when this union consolidates, life begins to acquire a new rhythm. Everything flows with more ease, and chance gives way to consciousness. For, ultimately, that is the true function of the double, to remind the human being that they are not alone within the universe, but in constant dialogue with their own totality. What is called intuition, coincidence, or luck is, in fact, the reflection of a broader consciousness working in perfect synchrony with time. And by recognizing this connection, something transforms in an irreversible way. The perception of reality never returns to being the same. The journey between the physical self and the subtle self does not end in intellectual understanding. It begins when knowledge transforms into practice. The double does not manifest merely to reveal mysteries, but to guide the human being toward their own totality. Every signal, every synchronicity, every dream is a reminder that there is something greater moving the invisible strings of existence. And ignoring these signals is like closing your eyes before a mirror that reflects your own destiny. Now that you understand how this communication happens, the challenge is to set it in motion. Try thanking your double before sleep. Ask questions with clear intention, Observe the dreams, the intuitions, the small nudges that life offers. Notice the repetitions, the improbable encounters, the coincidences that emerge right after a deep thought. All of this is the dialogue happening, silent but constant. The double does not speak loudly. It manifests in the rhythm of the heart, in sudden decisions that seem irrational, but save the path. It is the compass of a universe that desires to see you awakened. From now on, the choice is yours. Continue ignoring the signs or learn to walk side by side with this consciousness that knows you better than anything else in the world. And if all of this is really happening, if your other self is trying to send you a message at this very instant, what could it be that they want to tell you? Think about it. And if this message touched you in some way, if it made sense in the innermost part of you, then subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and continue with me on this journey of consciousness expansion. There is much more to be revealed, and perhaps the next video is exactly the sign your double wants you to see.